Awkwafina decided to go on Twitter and announce that she was leaving Twitter. But here are the 4 parts she put up at first as to why she is leaving. I'm going to read them all. She said, there's a social political context to everything, especially the historical context of the African American community in this country. It is a group that is disproportionately, affected by institutionalized policies and law enforcement policies, all the while having historically and routinely seen their culture stolen, exploited, and appropriated by the dominant culture for monetary gain without acknowledgement nor respect for where those roots come from and the pioneers of its beginning and artists that perfected and mastered the craft. It is a problem we still see today, though some may pass it off as a convoluted mixture of the quote internet TikTok slang generation unquote that liberally uses AAVE, this African American vernacular, to add that hip hop, a genre of music that is ubiquitous and beloved across the country, has now anchored itself as a mainstream genre in music history and in life, linguistic acculturation, immigrant acculturation. I don't know if I'm saying that word correctly, so excuse me.
Probably.
And the inevitable passage of globalized internet slang all play a factor in the fine line between offense and pop culture. But as a non-Black POC, I stand by the fact that I will always listen and work tirelessly to understand the history and context of AAVE, what is deemed appropriate or backwards towards the progress of any and every marginalized group. But I must emphasize, to mock, belittle, or to be unkind in any way possible at the expense of others is simply not my nature. It never has and it never was. My immigrant background allowed me to carve an American identity off the movies and TV shows I watched, the children I went to public school with, and my undying love and respect for hip-hop. I think as a group, Asian Americans are still trying to figure out what that journey means for them, what is correct, and where they don't belong. And though I'm still learning and doing that personal work, I know for sure that I want to spend the rest of my career doing nothing but uplifting our communities. We do this first by failing, learning, acknowledging, hearing, and empathizing. And I will continue tirelessly to do just that. This is all from the fact she has consistently been called out about doing this bullshit because, again, Awkwafina is a play on ghetto names. Nora from Queens is about a Korean chick who lives in Queens and everything. Her whole identity is a mockery of Black culture. Why? She literally has stated she never wanted to do anything to mock the Asian American culture as hard as they try to be. But you had no problem being a minstrel show. This was even addressed during the press junket for Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. And again, she did not answer it. She did this shit.
You know, I'm open to the conversation. I think it, you know, it really is something that I think is a little bit multifaceted and layered. And so, yeah.
In no way, shape, form, or fashion has she ever given an apology to African Americans. She has never once said she is sorry for mocking our culture to make her own. She has literally said, well, Asian Americans don't have their own culture. You're a fucking liar. There are whole neighborhoods dedicated to the cultures from those who come from overseas here and make their home here in America. There are cities in every major city, neighborhoods in every major city that do that. But this is where it got worse. So, of course, non-Black people started big up in this bitch on Twitter, right? And what did Awkwafina do? Like their post. Look at some of these. A white guy, Eric Latcher. I understood his portrait decision. Fuck the mean people and rock on with your epic career. Big fan. You keep evening gowns in your boots. I'm not an animal. White girl Jess. Stay strong. White shoulder, strong arm. The real ones know and especially appreciate your craft. Ashley, I love you, Awkwafina, and hate that the Twitter trolls have affected your mental health to where the space no longer feels safe. Totes get it though. Keep being you, the hater, F the haters, and keep making the world laugh, smile, queen. And then again, Mac Lethal, you don't owe anyone an explanation for anything. People love you. An entire world exists outside of Twitter comments. This isn't about Twitter. She announced she was leaving Twitter, basically. But this isn't about Twitter. This isn't about social media. It's about the fact you have yet to acknowledge how you got your name, how you are who you are. You're like, well, I'm willing to have the conversation, but you won't have it. You won't have it. You cannot even say, I was wrong. You will consistently beat around the bush. Sorry.
No, you don't need to apologize. This one's tough for me for just a couple of reasons. Because there are actual like offenders that I think are infinitely worse than her. So like Iggy Azalea, for example, who not only not only doesn't normally speak like that, which is part of what has come out of Awkwafina's mouth, is it's not really how because like my whole thought process then goes to, okay, well, what about like the G-Eazys or the Eminems of the world that like Eminem would G-Eazy probably be a better example because Eminem obviously grew up in the hood. But G-Eazy, like, well, he grew up in Oakland and he hung out with like a number of like black folk and stuff like that. I mean, he technically lived in a suburb, if I remember his documentary correctly. He just happened to put himself in the culture. So, and he speaks like that normally, calls himself G-Eazy. He's rapping about all the shit that he's rapping about. You know what I'm saying? So like where I get confused and where I do think that there is a part that she needs to do a lot better. And I think that this was her attempting to do a conversation and people win her to throat because we all are mad sensitive at this point. And there's a difference between what Joe Rogan did, which is very clearly for 12 years, just shitting and shitting and shitting and shitting on people and thinking, hey, it was just jokes. It was just, you're taking it out of context. So I'm not saying that there's a shit she needs to answer for. I think she does, like, honestly. But I guess if she's gonna do that, I need her to actually then sit and have this conversation. Don't just throw something on Twitter and run away. If you're really gonna have this conversation, have that fucking conversation. That's the first thing. And then the second thing is, and I think this is kind of fucked up. Again, you have adopted our culture. You don't act like that 24/7. If you make the argument, well, she changes it for a movie, that would make sense. Everybody puts different accents on depending on what role. But we're not even talking about that. I'm saying her 24/7 when she's not acting as someone else is not her talking like that. You know what I'm saying? And I think that that's why a lot of people get so fucking frustrated. So I think if this is going to be addressed, I think and a lot of people are saying her career's over. No, it's not. It's over
Who
a tweet.
Who said her career's over?
A couple people said, hold on. I saw one comment in particular, like her career. Oh, Chris said her career is done. No, it's not.
No, it's not.
The funny thing is, people will forget about this shit in about 2 days.
Right.
People have already forgotten about it. It happened like 2 days ago.
I mean, we're talking about it because we come on Tuesday.
Our show comes on Tuesday. People already over. Trust me, Marvel's just gonna wait, and then when they're ready for Shang-Chi 2, just slide her on in there. Because you didn't fire Evangeline Lilly for wild shit, so
you can't fire her when something is done already. But go ahead.
Right. So, what my concern is, and this is a real question. Again, not caping for her, because again, I do believe that she has some shit to answer for. What would you say is an appropriate way for her, other than just straight up saying the words "I'm sorry"? Because I don't think that that's enough. What would you say is the appropriate way for her to actually address this?
Just acknowledge it. She has never everybody has called her direct. Everyone has directly said, yo, so your career is made off you doing a black accent, of perpetuating a black stereotype. But you literally stated in an interview you would never do anything that mocked an Asian American stereotype. But you perpetuated one. And that's the problem. She always beats around the bush with that.
And that's my question. So, because didn't she grow up rapping in New York around age 13? Again, not excusing the actions, but an argument could be said she was influenced by the culture at a young age. So I think about the dude that Fresh Off the Boat was initially made after. Same thing. He talks about in his book and all that, and at the pilot of the show before he disavowed the show, about how he immigrated here and how he just got fully absorbed into hip hop culture, and that's so kind of a closer simulation, a closer situation to address. So,
but here I think the difference is, did he make a career off of it? I think that's the number one issue.
Being himself, which himself was that.
Right. So that's just him, right?
So my other question is, what about, so not just G-Eazy, what about, say, Lil Dicky, for example,
but he's openly stated who he is.
No, I understand that, but he's also cracking jokes. Do we also, like, you want to talk about actually mocking hip hop, though there clearly seems to be some love there. What about Lonely Island, for example? Because that's another example where you are mocking things that black people have made.
But here's the thing where I take with Lonely Island. They establish that they are completely satirical. Okay. They have made it where it's not meant. Lonely Island was never meant to be Lonely Island is never meant to be this big thing to make a career off of. Andy Samberg's them careers are off them being great comedic actors and things like that.
So I'll be honest, I'm not familiar with her previous work that eventually got her where she is, other than knowing that she was Awkwafina, some YouTube rapper. So my question is, because again, you watch Lonely Island do that stuff. They're putting on a black accent. You watch G-Eazy, he's putting on a black accent, all that stuff. So my question is that, was there something in her raps where she's like calling people ghetto and shit? Like, I'm just trying to understand, because I don't fully get it, other than the fact that if that's who she is, where that's how she talks, like Eddie Wong, that's his name, Eddie Wong. If that's who she is as a person and her personality, then that's one thing. But if she's just putting it on to get somewhere, that's another. That's what I'm trying to fit. Oh, so here's another thing. She apparently did not grow up in Queens. She's from the suburbs. Interesting.
Yep, I got
so these are the questions that I'm trying to understand, because I don't know enough about it, other than people are coming at her for this. And again, if she is straight up here doing it, then that's a massive problem.
Yeah, and that's
massive.
Yeah, that's the thing.
But Blerds in the Hood every Tuesday and Thursday, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. All full episodes exclusively available on Twitch for the month of February. www.twitch.tv/BLERDS, the letter NTHEHOOD. Be sure to like, follow, and subscribe.